Hello, beautiful soul. I want you to know that your presence here today is no accident. There's something stirring within you, something that's been quietly whispering for your attention. It's the part of you that knows, deep down, that you're meant for more. You're meant to receive the goodness that life has to offer, yet somewhere along the way, that natural ability to receive became clouded, confused, or perhaps even completely shut down. I see you there, perhaps feeling a mix of hope and skepticism. Maybe you've tried so many approaches to create positive change in your life. You've worked hard, you've pushed, you've struggled, and yet somehow the beautiful things you long for seem to stay just out of reach. There's a part of you that wonders if you're doing something wrong, if there's some secret that everyone else knows but you. Let me tell you something with all the love in my heart. There is nothing wrong with you. You are not broken. You haven't missed some cosmic memo about how life works. What we're going to explore together today is something so fundamental, so basic to our human experience, that it often gets overlooked in our busy, achievement-oriented world. We're going to talk about receiving, not just receiving gifts or compliments, though that's part of it. We're talking about your capacity to receive love, to receive abundance, to receive the very life force that wants to flow through you and support you in ways you may have never allowed yourself to consider. You see, receiving is actually our most natural state. When you were born, you knew how to receive. You received nourishment, warmth, care, and love without question. You didn't wonder if you deserved it. You didn't analyze whether you had earned it. You simply opened yourself and allowed life to support you. This wasn't selfishness. This was survival. This was the natural order of things. But somewhere between then and now, layers of conditioning began to form around this natural capacity. The world began to teach you that receiving was somehow wrong or dangerous. Perhaps you learned that it was better to give than to receive. And while giving is beautiful, this teaching often came with the hidden message that receiving was selfish or weak. Maybe you discovered that receiving came with strings attached, that love and support had conditions you couldn't always meet. Or perhaps you learned that the people around you were so overwhelmed or depleted that your receiving felt like taking something away from others who needed it more. These are the tender places where your receiving capacity began to close down, not because there was anything wrong with your spirit, but because your wise inner self was trying to protect you. Your heart learned to guard itself, to become smaller, to expect less, to ask for less, to settle for less. This wasn't a failure on your part. This was actually your survival intelligence at work, trying to keep you safe in a world that seemed to penalize your natural openness. But here's what I want you to understand. Those survival strategies that once protected you may now be the very things that are keeping you from the life you truly want to live. The walls you built to protect your tender heart are also the walls that keep out the very love and abundance that would nourish and support you. This isn't anyone's fault. This is simply what happens when sensitive souls learn to navigate a world that doesn't always know how to honor sensitivity. Today, we're going to begin a gentle process of reopening those receiving channels. We're going to explore how to create safety for your heart to expand again. We're going to look at receiving not as something you have to earn or deserve through your actions, but as your birthright, as natural as breathing. And just as you learn to protect yourself, you can learn to open yourself again, but this time with wisdom, with discernment, with love for the journey you've traveled to get here. Now let's explore what might be underneath this struggle to receive, because understanding is always the first step toward healing. When we look at why receiving feels difficult or impossible for so many people, we often find stories that began very early in life. These aren't stories we consciously created, but rather conclusions our young minds drew about how the world works and what was safe or dangerous about opening ourselves to receive. Many people carry an unconscious belief that they are not worthy of receiving good things. This belief often formed before they even had words to describe it. Maybe they grew up in a family where resources were scarce, where there was a constant worry about having enough. In such environments, a child might learn that asking for things or wanting things creates stress for the people they love most. So they learn to want less, to need less, to take up less space. This feels like love to a child's mind because it protects the people they depend on. Others learned that receiving came with obligations that felt too heavy to bear. Perhaps every gift, every kindness, every form of support came with expectations or demands that felt overwhelming. The message became clear. It's safer not to receive than to be trapped by what receiving might require of you. So they learned to be completely self-sufficient, to never owe anyone anything, to never be in a position where someone could hold their receiving over them. Some people learned that receiving meant becoming vulnerable to loss. When they opened their hearts to receive love, care, or good things, those things were sometimes taken away suddenly or used against them. Their young hearts concluded that it was safer to never fully receive, to always hold back a part of themselves, because then the loss wouldn't hurt as much when it inevitably came. And then there are those who learned that receiving meant taking something away from someone else. In families where there truly wasn't enough to go around, or where love felt conditional and limited, children often conclude that their receiving means someone else has to go without. This creates a deep internal conflict where receiving feels selfish, where joy feels guilty, where abundance feels wrong. These patterns live not just in our minds, but in our bodies. When you think about receiving something wonderful, what happens in your chest? Does it feel open and expansive, or do you notice a tightening, a holding back? What about your shoulders? Do they relax with the thought of being supported, or do they rise with tension? Your body holds the memory of every time receiving felt unsafe, and these memories influence your capacity to receive now, even when your current circumstances are completely different. The truth is, most people are walking around with receiving systems that are partially or completely shut down. They want good things to come into their lives, but their energetic field is saying no, or not now, or only a little bit, or only if I earn it through suffering first. This creates an internal contradiction that blocks the natural flow of abundance and support that life wants to offer. Understanding this isn't about blame or shame. These protective patterns developed for good reasons. Your inner wisdom was doing its job, trying to keep you safe based on the information it had at the time. But now you have new information. Now you can choose to create new patterns that serve the life you want to live now, not the life you needed to survive then. What many people don't realize is how deeply connected our thoughts about receiving are to our physical experience in our bodies. Your thoughts about worthiness, about safety, about whether you deserve good things, these thoughts create immediate responses in your nervous system. When you think about receiving something wonderful, your body either moves toward expansion and openness, or it contracts into protection and defense. This isn't just a metaphor, this is actual physiology. When your mind perceives receiving as dangerous, your nervous system responds as if there's a real threat present. Your breath becomes shallow, your muscles tighten, your heart rate might increase. Blood flow moves away from your digestive system and toward your major muscle groups, preparing you to fight or run away from whatever danger your mind has perceived. This is the same response your body would have to a physical threat, even though the threat is just the idea of allowing yourself to receive. This physiological response to receiving happens so quickly and so automatically that most people aren't even aware it's occurring. They just notice that when they try to open themselves to receiving love, money, opportunities, or support, they feel uncomfortable, anxious, or somehow wrong. They interpret this feeling as evidence that receiving isn't right for them, that they should stick with what feels familiar, even if what feels familiar is struggle and limitation. But what if that uncomfortable feeling isn't evidence that receiving is wrong? What if it's simply evidence that your nervous system hasn't yet learned that receiving can be safe? What if your body is just remembering old experiences and old conclusions, and it needs gentle reassurance that things are different now? When we understand this mind-body connection, we can begin to work with our whole system instead of trying to override our body's wisdom with our mind's determination. We can start to create new experiences that teach our nervous system that receiving can be safe, even pleasurable, even healing. Think about what happens in your body when you receive a genuine compliment from someone you trust. If you pay close attention, you might notice a moment of expansion in your chest, a softening around your heart, maybe even a tingling sensation that feels warm and alive. This is your nervous system saying yes to receiving. This is what it feels like when your body agrees with your mind that it's safe to let something good in. Now think about what happens when someone offers you help with something you're struggling with, or when someone wants to pay for your meal, or when someone offers you an opportunity that feels too good to be true. Do you feel that same expansion, or do you notice a tightening, a pulling back, a voice that says, "I can't," or "I shouldn't," or "What will they want in return?" This is your nervous system moving into protection mode, even when your mind might want to say yes. Your body holds wisdom about receiving that your mind might not understand. Sometimes your body says no to receiving because it senses something that isn't truly safe or healthy. This is important information. But sometimes your body says no to receiving simply because it's remembering old experiences and old hurts, and it hasn't yet learned that you're no longer in that old situation. The beautiful thing about understanding this mind-body connection is that you can begin to work with both your thoughts and your physical sensations to create new patterns around receiving. You can learn to notice when your body is responding from old memories versus current reality. You can practice breathing in ways that signal safety to your nervous system. You can create experiences that gradually teach your body that receiving can be a source of nourishment rather than threat. This process isn't about forcing yourself to receive things that don't feel right, and it's not about overriding your body's signals. It's about creating the internal conditions where your natural capacity to receive can begin to emerge again. It's about healing the old wounds that made receiving feel dangerous in the first place, so that your body can relax into its natural state of openness and receptivity. When your nervous system feels safe, receiving becomes as natural as breathing. Your body actually begins to magnetize good experiences toward you because you're no longer broadcasting the energy of protection and defense. Instead, you're radiating the energy of openness and welcome, and life responds to that energy by bringing you more experiences that match that vibration. This understanding of how your body responds to receiving opens the door to one of the most healing approaches you can take, releasing old patterns with compassion rather than force. So many people, when they discover that they have blocks around receiving, immediately want to bulldoze through those blocks or shame themselves for having them in the first place. But this approach often just creates more internal conflict and actually strengthens the very patterns they're trying to change. Your receiving blocks didn't develop overnight, and they won't dissolve overnight either. They formed as part of your survival strategy, which means they were actually trying to help you, even if they're no longer serving you now. When you approach these patterns with appreciation for how they tried to protect you, something beautiful happens. The defensive energy around them begins to soften, and they become more willing to transform. Think of these old patterns like a devoted guard dog that's been protecting your heart for years. This guard dog learned long ago that receiving could be dangerous, so it's been faithfully keeping watch, ready to bark or bite whenever someone or something tries to get too close to your tender places. You wouldn't hate this guard dog for doing its job, would you? You wouldn't try to get rid of it by force. Instead, you might gently let it know that the old danger has passed, that it can relax now, that you appreciate its service, but you're ready to try a different approach. This is how we work with the parts of ourselves that resist receiving. We acknowledge them with love. We thank them for all the ways they've tried to keep us safe. We let them know that we understand why they developed and that their vigilance made sense given what we experienced. This isn't about agreeing that receiving is dangerous now. It's about honoring the wisdom that these patterns represented when they first formed. When you approach your receiving blocks with this kind of compassion, they often begin to share their stories with you. You might find yourself remembering times when receiving felt scary or overwhelming. You might notice old voices in your head that warned you about being too greedy or too needy. You might feel old emotions that got frozen in time when your heart first learned to close down. This isn't a sign that you're going backward. This is actually healing in action. As these old memories and feelings come up, your job isn't to analyze them or fix them or make them go away. Your job is simply to be present with them, to let them know they're welcome, to breathe with them, and hold space for whatever wants to emerge. Sometimes these old parts of yourself just need to be seen and acknowledged. Sometimes they need to express feelings that got pushed down long ago. Sometimes they need reassurance that things are different now. This process of releasing old patterns often happens in layers. You might find that you make progress in one area of receiving, only to discover another layer of resistance in a different area. This isn't failure. This is how healing works. Each layer that releases creates space for deeper patterns to surface and be healed. Each conversation you have with these protective parts of yourself builds trust and creates more internal cooperation around your intention to receive. The key is to stay curious rather than judgmental about what you discover. When you notice resistance to receiving, instead of thinking, "There I go again," or "I should be over this by now," you can think, "How interesting. What is this part of me trying to tell me? What does it need to feel safe?" This shift from judgment to curiosity changes everything about your relationship with your own healing process. Sometimes the resistance isn't just about past experiences. It's also about current beliefs about what receiving means about you as a person. Many people carry deep, often unconscious beliefs that receiving makes them weak, dependent, or somehow less than others. They believe that truly strong, good people are completely self-sufficient and never need anything from anyone. This belief often comes from families or cultures that valued independence above all else, sometimes because depending on others felt dangerous or unreliable. But here's what's true. Receiving is actually a sign of strength, not weakness. It takes tremendous courage to open your heart to receive love when you've been hurt before. It takes wisdom to recognize when you need support and to allow others to contribute to your life. It takes emotional maturity to receive gracefully without feeling diminished by your need or guilty about your good fortune. When you release the old patterns that kept receiving at bay, you're not just helping yourself. You're also giving the people in your life the gift of being able to contribute to your well-being. Most people actually feel joy when they can offer something meaningful to someone they care about. When you block their attempts to give to you, you rob them of that joy. When you learn to receive gracefully, you create opportunities for deeper connection and mutual support. Now, underneath all these patterns and protective mechanisms lies something even more fundamental that affects your ability to receive, your relationship with your own worth. This is perhaps the most crucial foundation for becoming a natural receiver, because if you don't believe you deserve good things, your whole system will work to keep good things away, even when you consciously want them to come. Self-worth isn't something you earn through your achievements or your goodness or your service to others. Self-worth is something you are born with, something that exists simply because you exist. You didn't have to do anything to deserve your first breath, your first heartbeat, your place on this planet. You were worthy of life itself before you ever accomplished anything or proved yourself to anyone. But somewhere along the way, most people begin to confuse their worth with their performance. They start to believe that their value depends on what they do, how much they achieve, how perfectly they behave, how much they can give to others. This creates an exhausting cycle where they have to constantly prove their worthiness through their actions, and they never quite feel like they've done enough to deserve the good things they want. This confusion between worth and performance is particularly damaging to your ability to receive, because receiving requires you to believe that you deserve good things simply because you are you, not because of what you've done to earn them. When you believe your worth is tied to your performance, receiving feels dangerous because it suggests that you deserve something you haven't worked for, which contradicts your entire belief system about how value works. The truth is that your worth was established the moment you came into being, and nothing you do or don't do can change that fundamental reality. You are worthy because you are part of the fabric of life itself. You are worthy because the same creative force that makes flowers bloom and stars shine also flows through you. You are worthy because love brought you into existence, and love continues to sustain you in every moment. This isn't just a nice philosophical idea. This is a practical truth that can transform your entire experience of life when you really let it in. When you truly understand that your worth is a given, not something you have to earn, everything changes about how you move through the world. You stop trying to prove your value and start living from your value. You stop working for love and start working from love. But recognizing your inherent worth intellectually is different from feeling it in your bones. Many people can say the words about being worthy, but their bodies and their energy field tell a different story. Their posture says, "I'm not enough." Their voice says, "I don't matter." Their choices say, "I don't deserve." This disconnect between what they know in their minds and what they feel in their hearts is what keeps them stuck in patterns of limitation and struggle. Building authentic self-worth requires gentle, consistent practice. It requires looking at yourself in the mirror and choosing to see beauty instead of flaws. It requires speaking to yourself with the same kindness you would offer a beloved friend. It requires making choices that honor your needs and desires, even when other people might not understand or approve. One of the most powerful ways to build self-worth is to start noticing and challenging the internal voice that tells you you're not enough. This voice is often so familiar that you don't even realize it's there, but it's constantly offering commentary about your appearance, your performance, your choices, your value. This voice learned its harsh tone from people and experiences in your past, but it doesn't represent the truth about who you are. When you notice this critical voice, you can practice responding to it with firmness and love. You can say, "Thank you for sharing, but I'm choosing to see this differently." You can ask, "Would I speak to someone I loved this way?" You can remember that this voice is just old programming, not current truth. Every time you choose a kinder, more truthful perspective about yourself, you strengthen your sense of worth. Another powerful practice is to start treating yourself as if you already know you're worthy. What would change about how you dress, how you speak, how you spend your time, how you allow others to treat you, if you truly believed you deserved the best. You don't have to wait until you feel completely worthy to start acting from worthiness. Often, acting as if creates the feeling rather than the other way around. This work with self-worth isn't selfish or self-indulgent. When you have a healthy sense of your own value, you actually become more available to love and serve others from a place of fullness rather than emptiness. You stop trying to get your worth met through your relationships and start bringing worth to your relationships. You stop demanding that others prove your value and start offering value to others. From this foundation of authentic worth, receiving becomes natural and effortless. When you know you deserve good things, your energy field begins to magnetize good things toward you. You start to notice opportunities you might have missed before. You start to attract people who want to support and celebrate you. You start to experience synchronicities and flow that feel magical but are actually just the natural result of alignment between your inner truth and your outer experience. Now that we've explored the importance of self-worth, let's look at how to practically open your receiving channels so that the good you desire can actually flow into your life. Opening to receive is both an energetic practice and a practical one. It involves shifting not just your thoughts, but also your energy, your attention, and your daily actions. The first step in opening your receiving channels is learning to create space. Most people's lives are so full, so busy, so packed with obligations and distractions that there's literally no room for anything new to enter. They want more abundance, but their schedules are completely booked. They want more love, but their hearts are closed and protected. They want more opportunities, but they're not available to notice or respond to them when they appear. Creating space for receiving means creating both inner space and outer space. Inner space is about clearing mental and emotional clutter that blocks your awareness of what's trying to come to you. This might mean spending time in silence, in nature, in meditation, or in any practice that helps you become more present and aware. When your mind is constantly busy, you miss the subtle signals and opportunities that are always available. Outer space is about creating practical room in your life for new experiences. This might mean saying no to commitments that drain your energy so you can say yes to things that nourish you. It might mean clearing physical clutter from your home so you can literally see and appreciate what you already have. It might mean creating pockets of unscheduled time so you're available when unexpected opportunities arise. The art of receiving also involves learning the difference between allowing and forcing. So many people try to force good things to come into their lives through sheer effort and willpower. They work harder, push harder, control more, manipulate circumstances, and exhaust themselves trying to make things happen. But receiving is actually the opposite of forcing. Receiving is about creating conditions that allow good things to flow naturally toward you. This doesn't mean being passive or taking no action. It means taking inspired action from a place of trust rather than desperate action from a place of fear. It means staying open to possibilities you hadn't considered rather than fixating on exactly how you think things should unfold. It means collaborating with life rather than trying to control life. When you're in a state of allowing, you become like a magnet for positive experiences. Your energy field shifts from contraction to expansion, from resistance to receptivity, from scarcity to abundance. People can feel this shift, even if they can't name it, and they're naturally drawn to offer support, opportunities, and connection to someone who feels open and available. One practical way to cultivate this allowing energy is through your breath. Your breath is directly connected to your nervous system and your energetic state. When you breathe shallowly or hold your breath, you signal to your system that you're in danger and need to protect yourself. When you breathe deeply and fully, you signal safety and openness. Try this. Think about something you would love to receive in your life. As you think about it, notice what happens to your breathing. Do you hold your breath? Does your breathing become shallow or tense? Now experiment with breathing deeply and slowly as you hold this desire in your awareness. Notice how this changes your relationship to what you want. Does it feel more possible? Does your body feel more open to actually receiving it? Another key element of opening your receiving channels is developing your capacity to notice and appreciate what you're already receiving. Most people are receiving far more than they realize, but their attention is so focused on what's missing that they miss what's present. This creates a vibration of lack that actually repels more abundance from coming. Every day, you receive countless gifts that you might take for granted. The air you breathe, the water you drink, the roof over your head, the people who care about you, the beauty that surrounds you, the opportunities available to you. When you start to truly notice and appreciate these gifts, you create an energetic field of gratitude that naturally attracts more good things to be grateful for. This isn't about positive thinking or pretending everything is perfect when it's not. This is about training your awareness to notice the abundance that's already present alongside whatever challenges you might be facing. When you become someone who notices and appreciates what you're receiving, life seems to conspire to give you more to notice and appreciate. The practice of receiving also involves learning to accept compliments, support, and kindness from others without deflecting or minimizing them. Pay attention to what happens when someone compliments you. Do you immediately redirect the compliment back to them? Do you point out flaws or exceptions? Do you feel uncomfortable and want to change the subject? These automatic responses are actually ways of blocking receiving. Instead, try simply saying thank you when someone offers you a compliment or kindness. Let yourself feel the good feelings that want to arise. Allow yourself to take in their words, their energy, their care. This might feel awkward at first, especially if you're not used to receiving positive attention, but it's actually a practice in expanding your capacity to let in love and appreciation. As you practice opening your receiving channels, you might notice that resistance arises. This is completely normal. Your old protective patterns might feel threatened by your increasing openness, and they might try to reassert themselves. When this happens, remember to approach the resistance with compassion rather than force. Breathe with it. Acknowledge it. Reassure it that you're being wise and discerning in your receiving, not reckless or naive. The goal isn't to become someone who receives everything from everyone without discernment. The goal is to develop the capacity to receive what's truly good for you while having healthy boundaries around what isn't. This requires both an open heart and wise judgment, both receptivity and discernment. As you begin to open your receiving channels more fully, you may find that resistance and fear arise in ways you didn't expect. This is actually a sign that you're making real progress, not a sign that something is wrong. When you start to expand beyond your familiar patterns, the parts of you that have been keeping you safe often become more active, trying to pull you back to what feels known and secure. Fear around receiving can show up in many different forms. Sometimes it's a general anxiety that arises when good things start flowing your way. You might find yourself waiting for the other shoe to drop, convinced that if things are going well, something bad must be coming. This fear often comes from past experiences where joy was followed by loss, where periods of abundance were followed by scarcity, where opening your heart led to heartbreak. Other times, the fear is more specific. You might be afraid that if you receive too much, you'll become selfish or spoiled. You might worry that other people will judge you for having good things, especially if they're struggling. You might fear that receiving will make you weak or dependent, that you'll lose your edge or your motivation to work hard. You might be afraid that if you let yourself really receive love and support, you'll be devastated if it goes away. These fears make sense when you understand where they come from, but they don't have to run your life. The key is to acknowledge them without letting them make your decisions for you. When fear arises around receiving, you can breathe with it, speak to it kindly, and then make a conscious choice about how you want to respond. One of the most common fears that people experience when learning to receive is the fear of being seen as greedy or selfish. This fear is particularly strong in people who were raised to believe that good people always put others first, that wanting things for yourself is somehow wrong or shameful. But there's a crucial difference between healthy receiving and selfish taking. Healthy receiving is about allowing yourself to be nourished and supported so that you can live fully and contribute meaningfully to the world. When you receive from this place, you're not taking anything away from anyone else. You're actually adding to the overall abundance available to everyone. Selfish taking, on the other hand, is about getting what you want at the expense of others, about hoarding resources or love out of fear that there isn't enough to go around. When you receive in healthy ways, you naturally want to give back. You become a conduit for abundance rather than a repository for it. The love you receive flows through you to others. The support you receive enables you to support others. The joy you experience becomes a gift to everyone whose life you touch. This is the natural flow of a healthy receiving system. Another common fear is the fear of disappointment. Many people would rather not receive anything than risk receiving something wonderful and then losing it. This fear often leads to a kind of preemptive rejection where people push away good things before they can get attached to them. But this strategy, while it might protect you from some disappointment, also protects you from joy, love, and all the beautiful experiences that make life worth living. The truth is that everything in life is temporary. The love you receive, the abundance you experience, the joy you feel, none of it will last forever in its current form. But this doesn't make these experiences less valuable. It makes them more precious. When you truly understand the temporary nature of all things, you can learn to receive fully in each moment without clinging to outcomes or demanding permanence. Working with the fear of receiving often requires taking very small steps. If the idea of receiving something big feels overwhelming, start with something tiny. Practice receiving a genuine compliment without deflecting it. Practice letting someone help you carry groceries to your car. Practice accepting a small gift without immediately feeling like you owe something in return. These small practices build your confidence and expand your capacity gradually. Sometimes the resistance to receiving isn't fear-based at all. It's simply unfamiliarity. If you've spent years being completely self-reliant, learning to receive might feel as foreign as learning a new language. Your body and your energy field simply don't know how to do it yet. This kind of resistance responds well to patience and practice. You're literally creating new neural pathways, new energetic patterns, new ways of being in the world. When resistance arises, you can work with it rather than against it. You can breathe into the tight places in your body. You can speak lovingly to the scared parts of yourself. You can remind yourself that it's safe to go slowly, that you don't have to become completely open overnight. You can trust that your system will open at exactly the pace that's right for you. Now let's explore some specific practices that can help you strengthen your receiving muscles and integrate this new way of being into your daily life. Just as you would exercise your physical muscles to keep them strong and flexible, your receiving capacity benefits from regular intentional practice. One of the most powerful practices for enhancing your ability to receive is mirror work. This involves looking into your own eyes in a mirror and speaking words of love, appreciation, and encouragement to yourself. For many people, this feels awkward or even impossible at first, but it's one of the most direct ways to heal your relationship with receiving love. Start by simply looking into your own eyes in the mirror and saying, "Hello, beautiful soul." Notice what happens in your body. Do you want to look away? Do you feel uncomfortable? Do critical thoughts arise? Just notice without judgment. Then experiment with saying kind things to yourself. "I love you. You are doing the best you can. You deserve good things. I'm proud of you for trying something new." This practice works because you are literally giving to yourself and receiving from yourself simultaneously. You're creating a circuit of love that flows from your heart through your words into your own ears and back to your heart. This helps heal the split between the giving and receiving parts of yourself and creates a foundation of self-love that makes it easier to receive love from others. Another powerful practice is gratitude, but not just any kind of gratitude. The kind of gratitude that enhances receiving is very specific. Instead of just thinking about what you're grateful for, practice feeling into the sensation of having already received these gifts. Let yourself really feel held by the love in your life. Let yourself feel nourished by the beauty around you. Let yourself feel supported by the opportunities available to you. This kind of embodied gratitude sends a signal to your nervous system that you are safe, supported, and valued. When your body feels this way, it naturally becomes more magnetic to positive experiences. You start to notice things you might have missed before. You start to attract people and opportunities that match your energetic state of appreciation and openness. Breathing practices can also be incredibly helpful for opening your receiving channels. Your breath is directly connected to your nervous system and your energetic state. When you breathe in a relaxed, open way, you signal to your body that it's safe to receive. When you hold your breath or breathe shallowly, you signal that you need to be protected and defended. Try this simple breathing practice. Place one hand on your heart and one hand on your belly. Breathe slowly and deeply, allowing your belly to expand on the inhale and relax on the exhale. As you breathe, imagine that you're breathing in love, support, and all the good things you desire. Imagine that with each exhale, you're releasing any tension, fear, or resistance that might be blocking your receiving. Do this for just a few minutes each day, and notice how it affects your overall sense of openness and availability. Creating receiving rituals can also be very helpful. These are regular practices that remind you to stay open and available to the good things that want to come into your life. This might be as simple as taking a few moments each morning to set an intention to notice and receive the gifts that the day has to offer. It might be keeping a receiving journal where you write down all the ways you receive support, kindness, or beauty each day. Some people create physical spaces in their homes that represent their openness to receiving. This might be a beautiful bowl on their kitchen table that represents their willingness to receive abundance. It might be fresh flowers that they buy for themselves each week as a practice in receiving beauty. It might be a comfortable chair where they sit each morning and imagine themselves surrounded by love and support. The key with any receiving practice is consistency rather than perfection. You're literally rewiring your nervous system and your energetic field, and this happens through repetition over time. It's better to do a simple practice every day than to do a complex practice once in a while. Your system learns through consistent, gentle repetition. As you practice these receiving exercises, pay attention to how they affect other areas of your life. You might notice that you start sleeping better, that your relationships improve, that opportunities begin appearing more frequently. These aren't coincidences. They're the natural result of shifting your energetic state from protection and scarcity to openness and abundance. Remember that learning to receive is not a destination, it's an ongoing practice. There will be days when receiving feels natural and effortless, and there will be days when your old patterns reassert themselves. This is completely normal. Healing doesn't happen in a straight line, and neither does learning to receive. Be patient with yourself, celebrate small victories, and trust that every moment of practice is moving you in the direction of greater openness and joy. As you continue to develop your receiving capacity, you'll find that it begins to transform how you move through the world on a daily basis. Living as a natural receiver isn't something you do only during special practices or certain times of day. It becomes a way of being that infuses every aspect of your life with greater ease, flow, and joy. When you live as a natural receiver, you start your day differently. Instead of immediately jumping into tasks and responsibilities, you might take a moment to appreciate the gift of another day of life. You might notice the quality of light coming through your windows, the comfort of your bed, the miracle of your breathing body. This isn't about becoming unrealistically positive. It's about training your awareness to notice the abundance that's already present. Throughout your day, you begin to notice small gifts that you might have missed before. Someone smiles at you on the street, and instead of being lost in your thoughts, you receive their kindness and let it warm your heart. A friend sends you an encouraging text message, and instead of quickly responding and moving on, you pause to really take in their care and support. You see something beautiful in nature, and instead of just glancing at it, you let yourself be truly touched by its beauty. Living as a natural receiver also changes how you interact with other people. When someone compliments you, you receive it gracefully instead of deflecting it. When someone offers to help you, you consider their offer genuinely instead of automatically saying no. When someone expresses love or appreciation for you, you let it land in your heart instead of brushing it off. This doesn't mean you become passive or lose your discernment. Natural receivers still have healthy boundaries. They can distinguish between offers that are truly supportive and those that come with strings attached. They can receive from people who genuinely care about them while protecting themselves from those who might want to take advantage of their openness. The difference is that natural receivers make these distinctions from a place of wisdom rather than fear. They don't reject all offers of support because some people have ulterior motives. They don't close their hearts to love because some people have hurt them in the past. They develop the capacity to stay open while also staying wise. One of the most beautiful aspects of living as a natural receiver is how it affects your relationships. When you're comfortable receiving, other people feel more comfortable giving to you. They don't have to worry about overwhelming you or making you uncomfortable with their care. They can express their love and support freely, knowing that you'll receive it gracefully. This creates an upward spiral in your relationships. The more you receive, the more others want to give. The more others give, the more nourished and filled up you become. The more nourished you are, the more you naturally want to give back, not from obligation or debt, but from the overflow of a full heart. Natural receivers also tend to be natural givers, but their giving comes from a very different place than the giving of people who can't receive. When you can receive love and support, your giving isn't about trying to earn love or prove your worth. It's not about fixing or rescuing others. It's the natural expression of a heart that has been filled and wants to share its fullness. As you become more comfortable receiving, you might notice that opportunities start appearing in your life more frequently. This isn't magic, although it might feel magical. When you're energetically open and available, you notice possibilities that were always there, but that you couldn't see when you were closed and protected. you also attract different kinds of experiences because your energy field is broadcasting availability rather than unavailability. Living as a natural receiver also means being willing to receive guidance and support from sources beyond other people. You might find yourself more open to insights that come through meditation, prayer, or quiet reflection. You might notice synchronicities and meaningful coincidences that seem to offer direction or confirmation. You might feel more connected to your own inner wisdom and more trusting of your intuitive guidance. This expanded openness to receiving doesn't make you gullible or naive. It actually makes you more discerning because you're listening to input from multiple sources rather than relying solely on your rational mind. You can receive guidance while still thinking critically about it. You can be open to possibilities while still making practical decisions. Perhaps most importantly, living as a natural receiver means being gentle with yourself when you notice that you've closed down again. Because you will close down sometimes. Old patterns will resurface. Challenging experiences will trigger your protective mechanisms. This isn't failure, this is being human. When you notice that you've become closed or defensive, you can breathe, soften, and gently remind yourself that it's safe to open again. You can appreciate the part of you that moved into protection and then invite it to relax. You can trust that your capacity to receive will continue to grow and deepen over time, even when it doesn't feel like it in difficult moments. The journey of learning to receive never really ends because life is always offering new levels of love, support, and abundance that you can learn to let in. Each stage of your life will invite you to receive in new ways. Each challenge you face will offer opportunities to receive support and guidance. Each joy you experience will invite you to receive more deeply into the goodness of being alive. Living as a natural receiver isn't about becoming someone different from who you are. It's about becoming more fully who you've always been, underneath all the protective patterns and conditioning. It's about returning to the natural openness and trust that you were born with, but now with the wisdom and discernment that you've gained through your life experiences. As we come to the end of our time together today, I want you to know that everything we've explored is already alive within you. The capacity to receive, the worthiness you seek to feel, the openness that would allow life to support you more fully. These aren't things you need to create or achieve. They're things you need to remember and allow. You came into this world as a perfect receiver. You knew how to accept love, nourishment, and care without question. You didn't wonder if you deserved it or worry about what it might cost you. You simply opened yourself to what was offered and let it fill you up. This capacity is still within you, underneath all the layers of protection and conditioning that accumulated over the years. The work we've done together today isn't about becoming someone new. It's about gently removing the barriers that have been keeping you from your own natural state of openness and receptivity. It's about healing the wounds that made receiving feel dangerous and creating new experiences that teach your whole system that receiving can be safe, nourishing, and healing. This is gentle work, tender work, sacred work. You don't have to rush it or force it or get it perfect. You can go at whatever pace feels right for your sensitive system. You can take breaks when you need them. You can start over as many times as necessary. Your willingness to explore these ideas and practices is already a profound act of love toward yourself. Remember that every small step you take toward greater receiving capacity ripples out into the world in ways you may never know. When you learn to receive love more fully, you become a more loving presence for others. When you learn to receive support more gracefully, you give others the gift of being able to contribute meaningfully to your life. When you learn to receive the abundance that life wants to offer you, You become a living example that abundance is possible. The world needs people who know how to receive. We live in a time when so many are exhausted from trying to do everything alone, from believing they have to earn every good thing that comes their way, from being afraid to need anything from anyone. When you heal your own relationship with receiving, you become part of the healing that our whole world needs. So be patient with yourself as you practice these new ways of being. Celebrate the small victories. Notice when receiving feels a little easier than it used to. Appreciate the moments when your heart feels more open than before. Trust that each practice session, each moment of awareness, each choice to try something different is contributing to a profound transformation that extends far beyond what you can see or measure. You deserve to live a life where you feel supported, loved, and abundantly cared for. You deserve to experience the joy that comes from letting good things flow freely into your life. You deserve to know yourself as someone who is worthy of receiving all the beautiful gifts that life has to offer. This isn't just a nice idea. This is your birthright, your natural state, your true inheritance as a beloved child of the universe. Take what resonates with you from our time together and leave the rest. Trust your own inner wisdom about what practices feel right for you and what timing feels appropriate for your journey. Know that I'm sending you love and encouragement for every step you take toward greater openness and receptivity. The path of learning to receive is ultimately a path of coming home to yourself, to your own worthiness, to your own capacity for joy and love and abundance. It's a return to the truth that you've always been enough, always been worthy, always been deserving of the very best that life has to offer. May you walk this path with gentleness toward yourself and trust in the unfolding of your own beautiful transformation.